want to figure out what are our options for clients, what are the best options, what are the pitfalls to avoid, both when you're drafting a trust, when you're constructing the plan, drafting the trust, and or administering the trust. And we assume going into this that you have some background. And I'll tell you why, because our job today, we have to digest an elephant, a huge amorphous mass of principles, rules, regulations, code, and all that stuff. And it's hard to know how to begin when you're going to digest an elephant. Do you first dissect it and put the bones over here and the skin over here and the steaks over here? Or do you just grab the tail and start chewing? I'm going to just grab the tail and start chewing. And you'll find I have certain assumptions that you know what an IRA is, that you've heard of required minimum distributions, and you're vaguely familiar with the income tax rules for individuals and trusts. When I talk about retirement accounts, I'll talk about IRAs. What I'm saying generally applies to all types of retirement accounts that are tax favored, accounts that are subject to the minimum distribution rules of Code Section 401A9. And the minimum distribution rules are the rules that, of course, tell the client when you have to start taking money out of your IRA or other plan. If I have stuff that's special for Roth IRAs, I'll bring that in. If it's a qualified retirement plan, such as a 401k plan, what I'm saying generally applies to that too. And I will try to, at very relevant points, point out what might be different if you're dealing with a qualified retirement plan account versus an individual retirement account. And we're all generally familiar with the fact that the IRA is a big bag full of deferred taxable income. Your client's $1 million IRA looks great on paper, but it's really only worth $1 million minus the income taxes that have to be paid to get the money out of that account, such as, today's top income tax bracket being 40%. You could say your $1 million IRA, it's probably worth only about $600,000 if you take out that money that's subject to the maximum income tax rate. The maximum income tax rate is really 43.8% if you add on the 3.8% additional tax on net investment income if the client has more than $200,000 of income. One good thing about IRAs, we'll be talking about bad things for the rest of this 3.5 hours. But the good thing is distributions from the IRA are not subject to the 3.8% net investment income tax. That's nice to know. All right, so where do we begin here? Here's how we will begin. Oh, by the way, you should have received handouts, mainly the long outline. It's about 100 and something pages. And you don't need to take notes really, because everything I say is going to be in that outline. So take notes if you want to know where to refer to things, but the substantive content is actually in the outline. And I would refer to page numbers if you're following along in the outline. I'll try to refer to page numbers if you want to go look at it right now for some reason. I'm starting on page 120 of the outline with the chart that tells us how the IRS imposes required minimum distributions on a trust that is named as beneficiary of the IRA. So we all know that required minimum distributions start at a certain age. During your lifetime, you have to start taking money out of your retirement plan at a certain point. We'll try to figure out what that point is a bit later, but for the several centuries, it was age 70 and a half, and now it's being increased. And Section 401A9 of the code tells you once you start taking distributions, how fast you have to take them out. And then 401A9 says, if you die, your beneficiary has to take the distributions. It starts a whole new set of distribution rules upon death, the post-death minimum distribution rules of 401A9. Okay, why do we care about that? Well, because you got to pay taxes on the $1 million in the IRA sometime, unless you leave it to charity. But if it's going to come out and be paid to an individual, they got to pay tax sometime. And if it's going to be paid after death, Code 401A9 is going to tell us, okay, here's the beneficiary. Here's when the beneficiary must take out minimum distributions from the IRA after the owner's death. And the code is based on the idea that the IRA is either payable to a, quote, designated beneficiary or it's not. And a designated beneficiary, says the code, remember the code, we can't throw that out, we can't ignore it. The code says a designated beneficiary is an individual, a human being. So you name a human being as your beneficiary, you die, the beneficiary gets the IRA, and the beneficiary then has to take minimum distributions over a specified period of time. What is that period of time? Well, of course,